Imagine standing on the red soil of Central Africa, the air thick with heat, the sound of rhythmic chants echoing across the savanna. It is the year 400 BCE, and on this land, long before Rome reached its peak, African metallurgists are already forging iron in furnaces that operate hotter and more efficiently than anything Europe will produce for nearly 2,000 years. At the center of this forgotten revolution lies the Bantu iron-working culture, a technological engine that shaped more than half of the continent. Archaeologists in the 1970s discovered something extraordinary in Termet, Niger. Buried beneath layers of sand were iron furnaces dated to 1500 BCE, centuries earlier than many textbooks ever acknowledged. But it was not just their age that shocked researchers, it was their complexity. These furnaces used natural draft techniques, pulling air through the system without bellows and reaching temperatures higher than medieval European bloomeries. It was an invention simultaneously elegant and deeply scientific, requiring mastery of airflow, clay chemistry, and fuel composition. Yet the world rarely learns about it. But iron was only the beginning. Deep in West Africa, another form of engineering emerged, one so ahead of its time that early European visitors refused to believe Africans had built it. The camera pans across dense West African forests. The year is 1485. Duarte Pacheco Pereira writes in his journal, struggling to describe what he sees. A city larger than Lisbon, surrounded by walls stretching farther than any structure on Earth except for the Great Wall of China. This was Benin City, capital of the powerful Edo Kingdom, a masterpiece of urban planning. Its walls, collectively known as the earthworks of Benin, stretched an astonishing 16,000 kilometers in combined length. Not meters, not hundreds, thousands. Almost 500 years of continuous construction, an engineering feat unmatched in scale until the Industrial Revolution. But how did the Edo engineers do it? They used a technique called Banco architecture, an earth-compressed system incredibly durable in West Africa's climate. The soil was dug in deep ditches and simultaneously molded into towering walls. This dual engineering created a moat and wall defense system so effective that even firearms struggled to breach it. The city itself was a marvel. Straight roadways aligned with astronomical precision, a drainage system capable of handling tropical rainfall, and street lighting using palm oil lamps that illuminated the night. The hook for next segment. But while the Edo people mastered earth and city design, far north of them, another African civilization was performing scientific miracles in water. When most people imagine the Sahel, the vast belt between the Sahara and forests of Africa, they picture dry plains and survival-level living. But over 1,000 years ago, this region supported some of the most sophisticated agricultural systems in the world. The Geni-Geno civilization, flourishing around 250 BCE to 900 AD, solved the problem of unpredictable flooding long before European hydrology emerged. Their engineers designed complex irrigation networks, adjusting water levels using buried clay channels and seasonal reservoirs. But perhaps the most remarkable hydraulic innovation rose from the ancient city of Kush, in modern-day Sudan. Here, Nubian engineers developed the sakia, a mechanized water wheel powered by cattle, a full millennium before it spread to the Mediterranean. This mastery of the environment was not limited to water. Across the forest regions of West and Central Africa, another silent revolution was happening, this time in medicine. Europe's first formal medical schools appeared around the 12th century. Africa's medical system began almost 3,000 years earlier. The ancient Egyptians documented surgical techniques, dental practices, and pharmaceutical recipes in scrolls such as the Ebers Papyrus, ca. 1550 BCE. But Egypt was only one chapter of the story. In East Africa, healers of the Buganda kingdom mastered caesarean operations using banana wine as anesthesia and antiseptic, techniques fully documented by British explorers in the 1870s. Their success rate shocked European doctors, who at the time still had high mortality rates from infection. Meanwhile, in West Africa, the Yoruba Ifa system functioned as both a medical and psychological framework, using observation, pattern analysis, and empirical experiment long before Western science introduced clinical methods.
And throughout Central Africa, knowledge of quinine-rich plants used for malaria existed centuries before Europeans began extracting it for global medicine. But what about mathematics, astronomy, architecture? Could Africa's scientific influence stretch beyond daily survival into the abstract world of numbers? The answer lies in a bone older than the pyramids themselves. In the shadow of the Virunga Mountains, along the shores of Lake Edward, a small bone tool was found in 1960. Tiny notches carved into its surface, deliberate, grouped, patterned. The Ishongo bone, dated to 22,000 BCE, is one of the world's oldest known mathematical artifacts. And what it contains stunned researchers. The notches appear arranged in prime numbers, base 12 patterns, doubling sequences, a pattern similar to modern multiplication. For decades, scholars debated whether it represented a lunar calendar, a counting tool, or an early form of number theory. But what remains undisputed is this: the earliest evidence of complex mathematical reasoning is not in Mesopotamia, not in Greece, but in Central Africa, 20 millennia ago. If Africans possessed number systems older than agriculture, what else did they innovate long before contact with the outside world? The next chapter takes us to the Great Lakes region, home to one of Africa's greatest engineering puzzles. In the hills of Rwanda and Burundi, powerful monarchies like the Kingdom of Rwanda emerged between the 15th and 18th centuries. Their achievements are rarely discussed, yet their infrastructure rivals medieval Europe in sophistication. Their engineers built terraced agriculture systems capable of feeding millions. They developed an intricate cattle-based economy supported by disciplined land management and sophisticated record-keeping. But the true marvel lies in their drum technology. The ingoma, a royal drum made from carefully selected wood and animal hide, produced acoustic properties so refined that sound engineers today struggle to replicate them without modern tools. Yet even this is only a piece of Africa's technological mosaic. Travel east, and another civilization emerges, and maritime empire older than Portugal's golden age. For centuries, the East African coast thrived as part of the Indian Ocean trade network, long before European ships appeared on the horizon. The Swahili people built ships known as matepe, sewn plank vessels with flexible hulls engineered specifically to handle monsoon waves. Instead of nails, they used coconut fiber ropes, which allowed the ships to bend rather than break in turbulent waters. Their navigators mastered monsoon wind patterns, aligning their trade routes with seasonal currents, a form of maritime science that required precise astronomical knowledge. Cities like Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar rose as trading hubs for gold, ivory, and spices. Kilwa's architecture, built with coral stone, remains one of the great engineering achievements of the medieval world. And yet, while East Africa mastered the sea, thousands of kilometers west, atop a rocky plateau, another civilization was designing architecture so advanced that modern engineers still debate how it was built. Rising from the granite hills of southern Africa stands Great Zimbabwe, capital of a powerful empire between the 11th and 15th centuries. Its most iconic feature, the Great Enclosure, is the largest ancient structure in sub-Saharan Africa. The walls rise as high as 11 meters. They stretch for hundreds of meters, and they were built without mortar. Stone perfectly cut, perfectly balanced, perfectly arranged. For centuries, European scholars tried to claim it could not have been built by Africans, but archaeological evidence leaves no doubt. Great Zimbabwe was constructed by the ancestors of the Shona people, skilled in geology, architecture, and long-distance trade. Their city served as the beating heart of a gold trading system that linked southern Africa to the Indian Ocean world.
But our journey is not complete. We still haven't visited West Africa's most legendary empire, a kingdom whose libraries rivaled those of medieval Europe and whose scholars shaped global knowledge. In the 14th through 16th centuries, while Europe was emerging from the shadows of the Black Plague, the Mali and Songhai empires built one of the world's greatest intellectual traditions. Timbuktu, often reduced to a symbol of remoteness, was in reality a center of advanced learning. Its scholars mastered astronomy, calculating planetary movements and eclipses with precision. Its physicians documented treatments for diseases across thousands of manuscripts. Its mathematicians developed systems of algebra and measurement used in trade, engineering, and architecture. The Ahmed Baba Institute today houses over 700,000 manuscripts, covering topics from chemistry to political theory, a scientific archive unmatched anywhere else in medieval Africa. But there is still one last question. If Africa developed such advanced systems in science, medicine, engineering, metallurgy, mathematics, agriculture, and architecture, why wasn't this history taught to the world? The answer lies not in the abilities of African civilizations, but in centuries of political agendas, colonial narratives, and the weaponization of anthropology. European colonizers relied on a myth that Africans had no history worth preserving, no technology worth studying, no science worth respecting. This myth justified conquest, it justified slavery, it justified centuries of exploitation.
to maintain it. Colonial scholars often dismissed African innovation as foreign influence, or claimed African achievements were accidental, primitive, or built by outsiders. But history, archaeology, and science tell another story. A story of innovation across millennia. A story of civilizations that adapted to some of the world's harshest climates and thrived. A story of a continent whose technological heritage is not only rich, but foundational to humanity itself. So the next time someone asks what Africa contributed to human progress, you can answer with confidence. Ironworking that changed the course of history. Cities larger and better engineered than their European counterparts. Medical science centuries ahead of the West. Mathematical systems older than agriculture. Astronomy, architecture, navigation, and engineering that shaped global civilization. These are not myths, not legends, not cultural flattery. They are historical truths written in stone, bone, metal, architecture, and memory. Africa's scientific legacy is not a footnote in world history. It is one of its foundations. And now, you know the part they never taught in school.